As 2025 draws to a close, the world's gaze remains fixed on the Middle East. Diplomacy, conflict, and oil dominate the headlines. Every day newsrooms buzz with updates from the region, and policymakers debate the next move in a seemingly endless cycle of tension and negotiation. The world's energy markets, political alliances, and even the daily lives of millions are shaped by what happens in this ancient crossroads of civilization. Yet, while attention is riveted on that region, a crisis of equal urgency is erupting much closer to home in the Western Hemisphere. The Americas, often overlooked in the global conversation, are now the stage for a rapidly developing emergency that threatens to upend the balance of power. In the Caribbean, Venezuela, home to the world's largest oil reserves, has become the epicenter of a dramatic new phase in American foreign policy. The country's vast resources, once a source of promise, are now at the heart of a struggle that could reshape the entire region's future. This is no slow-moving dispute, it's a rapidly escalating military and economic confrontation, largely overlooked by the public and policymakers. Tensions are rising by the day, with both sides mobilizing forces and preparing for outcomes that could have far-reaching consequences. Direct military engagements, asset seizures, and a formidable U.S. naval presence are unfolding with little debate or oversight. The world watches the Middle East, but in the Caribbean, the stakes are just as high, if not higher, for the future of global stability. The world is sleepwalking into a crisis that could destabilize the region, trigger a humanitarian catastrophe, and send shockwaves through already stressed global energy markets. Ordinary Venezuelans face shortages and uncertainty, while international investors brace for the impact of plummeting oil prices and disrupted supply chains. The distraction of the Middle East has provided cover for a high-stakes power play in America's own backyard. As policymakers in Washington focus on distant conflicts, critical decisions are being made closer to home, decisions that could alter the course of history for the entire hemisphere. Ignoring this growing fire in the West while we're preoccupied with the East is a mistake the world can't afford. The consequences of inaction could be dire, not just for Venezuela or the United States, but for the stability and prosperity of the world as a whole. The time to pay attention is now. The US-Venezuela standoff has moved far beyond diplomatic posturing. What's unfolding now is nothing short of a shadow war, fought in the open waters of the Caribbean and behind closed doors in Washington. Since September, the US military has carried out more than 20 strikes in Venezuelan territorial waters. These operations have resulted in dozens of casualties, both military and civilian, and have sent shockwaves through the region, raising fears of a wider conflict. The situation escalated dramatically when the US Navy seized a Venezuelan oil tanker in international waters. This bold move was condemned by much of the international community, with some leaders calling it outright piracy and a dangerous violation of maritime law. The ongoing blockade is designed to strangle Venezuela's economy by cutting off its vital oil exports. With tankers idled in port and shipping lanes blocked, the country's main source of revenue is drying up, deepening the humanitarian crisis for millions of Venezuelans. To enforce this blockade, the Pentagon has deployed a massive naval force, including a carrier strike group and thousands of military personnel. This show of force goes far beyond what would be required for a typical counter-narcotics operation, signaling a much broader strategic objective. Officially, the US claims the buildup is aimed at disrupting drug cartels operating in the region. But the sheer scale and intensity of the operation suggest a different goal, one that points toward regime change and a fundamental shift in US policy toward Venezuela. These aggressive actions are being taken unilaterally by the executive branch, bypassing Congress entirely. This has sparked a heated debate in Washington, with many questioning the legality and constitutionality of such unchecked presidential power. Despite growing concerns, the Senate has so far failed to rein in the president's authority, setting a troubling precedent for future conflicts and further eroding the balance of power in the US government. Acts of war are now being carried out without the consent of the people or their representatives. The consequences of these decisions will echo for years to come, shaping the future of democracy and international law in ways we are only beginning to understand. Venezuela sits atop the world's largest oil reserves, yet its industry is in ruins after decades of mismanagement and sanctions. Production has collapsed from over 3 million barrels a day to under a million, with infrastructure in disrepair and investment scarce. U.S. sanctions have made recovery nearly impossible, cutting off access to financing and technology. Despite its decline, Venezuela's output remains crucial in a market already stretched thin by Middle East conflicts and OPEC+ cuts. Its heavy crude is vital for specialized refineries in the US and Asia. The US blockade threatens to remove nearly 1 million barrels a day from global supply, risking a sudden and severe shock. The seizure of tankers and naval presence are not just symbolic, they're a direct assault on the flow of oil. Venezuela's slow decline has become an immediate trigger for a global energy crisis. U.S. actions in the Caribbean are creating a ticking time bomb for global energy markets. The world's oil supply is already on a knife's edge, with little slack due to OPEC+ discipline and Middle East instability. Removing Venezuelan oil could spark a supply shock. Its absence would be felt immediately, especially by refineries needing heavy crude. Few producers can quickly fill the gap, and the market is bracing for a scramble as prices surge. The crackdown extends to the shadow fleet moving sanctioned oil, tightening supply even further. Recent seizures of tankers carrying Russian and Venezuelan oil show the U.S. is escalating enforcement. This multi-pronged strategy, military action and sanctions, is setting the stage for a massive oil shock. The world is on the verge of a crisis driven not by disaster, but by deliberate policy. If this were about oil, the US could simply lift sanctions or expand legal operations, yet it chooses confrontation. The real motive is geopolitical regime change in Venezuela to install a government aligned with US interests. The strategy is to squeeze Venezuela's economy to the breaking point, forcing collapse or capitulation. This is also about countering China and Russia, who have deepened ties with Maduro and invested heavily in Venezuela's energy sector. The U.S. military operation is a direct challenge to their influence in the region. A pro-American government in Caracas would roll back years of Chinese and Russian gains. The crisis is less about oil barrels and more about great power competition. Venezuela is a pawn on the global chessboard. The stakes are high, and the consequences will reverberate far beyond Latin America. In any crisis, it's crucial to ask, who benefits? Defense contractors profit from the massive military deployment, while private equity and multinationals eye Venezuela's oil reserves as a post-conflict prize. A new, US-friendly government would likely privatize state assets, opening the door to lucrative contracts for rebuilding the oil sector. The playbook is familiar. Politically connected firms secure preferential access in post-crisis economies. Lobbying groups in Washington push for aggressive policies that favor regime change and investment opportunities. The alignment of strategic and financial interests creates a powerful coalition for confrontation. Humanitarian concerns and regional stability are secondary to the promise of profit. Ordinary Venezuelans and American consumers will bear the costs, while the rewards go to a select few. For most people, the Venezuelan crisis feels distant, until it hits the gas pump. The blockade is set to trigger a sharp spike in global gasoline prices, passed directly to consumers. Energy analysts warn that if the blockade continues, gas prices could jump within weeks. Higher fuel costs will hit lower and middle-income families hardest, adding to inflation and economic strain. Businesses will face increased costs, leading to higher prices, reduced hiring, or layoffs. The policy meant to assert U.S. strength abroad could weaken its own economy at home. Non-military options exist to stabilize prices, but they're being ignored. In this power play, the financial well-being of ordinary citizens is collateral damage. The most tragic consequence of this crisis is the human suffering it inflicts. Venezuela is already in the grip of a humanitarian disaster. Millions have fled, and those who remain face shortages of food and medicine. The blockade will deepen misery for millions, cutting off the government's last source of revenue. Ordinary citizens, not political elites, will bear the brunt. Children, the elderly, and the sick will suffer most. The impact will spill over to Cuba, which relies on Venezuelan oil. Blackouts and hardship there could spark unrest and migration. Is it justifiable to inflict such suffering for a foreign policy goal? The world wants a peaceful resolution, but the current path risks multiplying the human cost. Venezuelans and Cubans are pawns in a great power game, their well-being sacrificed for geopolitical ambition. We stand on the edge of a manufactured crisis, with the path ahead uncertain and dangerous. The world is watching, holding its breath as events unfold with alarming speed. Every headline, every decision, and every moment seems to push us closer to a point of no return. The stakes have rarely been higher, and the consequences of missteps could echo for generations. The risk of direct military confrontation is real. One miscalculation could ignite a hot war in the Caribbean. Tensions are mounting as military assets gather, and the world's most powerful nations test each other's resolve. The region, once a crossroads of trade and culture, now teeters on the brink of becoming a flashpoint for global conflict. Even without open conflict, the economic and humanitarian fallout will be severe. Soaring oil prices, recession, and mass migration. Everyday people will bear the brunt, facing shortages, uncertainty, and the fear of what tomorrow might bring. The ripple effects will reach far beyond the Caribbean, touching lives in distant cities and rural towns alike. The US is asserting power without international consensus or clear legal mandate, setting a troubling precedent. This approach risks undermining the very institutions designed to keep peace and order. Allies are divided, adversaries emboldened, and the rules that have governed global relations for decades are being tested like never before. This is a test case for 21st century great power competition. How far will the US go, and will others push back? The world is watching to see who will blink first, and what new alliances or rivalries might emerge from the chaos. The outcome here could shape the balance of power for years to come. The crisis is about more than oil or distant countries. It's about the rules of the international order, and the impact of foreign policy on ordinary lives. Behind every policy decision are millions of people whose futures hang in the balance. The choices made now will define not just borders, but the very principles that guide our world. A shadow war in the Caribbean casts a long, dark shadow across the globe. The uncertainty and fear it generates are felt in boardrooms, classrooms, and homes everywhere. The world is entering a period of profound instability, and no one is immune to its effects. Paying attention isn't optional. It's essential, because these uncharted waters will affect us all. In times like these, awareness and understanding are our best defenses. The choices we make, and the voices we raise, will help determine what comes next in this uncertain chapter of history.